All of you are really interacting energetically, but to connect in a virtual group, to connect via Facebook, it's pretty incredible what we can do with technology now. So really what I'd like for you just to ask yourself at this point, whether you're a private client of mine and you've heard about this before, or this is your very first opportunity of working with me and you've been practicing some of the breathing exercises, my question to you is, how are you perceiving yourself? You know, have you noticed certain thoughts? Have you noticed certain emotions? Have you noticed that you're coming at things from a different angle? Even if you've been through this course before, are you in a different place right now than you were the very first time? And probably, you know, we go into different experiences, all divinely timed, by the way, to teach us something, and usually it's more in depth. It can hit us in a different way, as I said, from a different angle. So just notice where you're at in terms of that. Are you noticing resistance to flow? Are you noticing that you're resisting it? Are you noticing you're questioning it? Again, this trimester is all about self-awareness and just being aware of how it is you perceive things, which I'm going to give you the definitions of in just a minute. So again, as you're doing the breath work, as you're moving energy, this is about noticing your thoughts, noticing your emotions, and noticing how you perceive things. So to notice, by definition, according to Merriam-Webster, is to become aware of and to pay attention to. Okay, so this is about self-awareness. So to pay attention to self. So if you haven't taken time to do your breathing exercises, if you haven't taken time to notice your thoughts, and again, this isn't about comparing yourself to anyone else. This is just noticing where you are right now, and this now, and then the next now, because really the now is all there is. So the perception, how we perceive things, by definition, perceive means to become aware of through the senses. So again, this is about self-awareness. So how are you perceiving yourself when it comes to you through the senses? When you look in the mirror, do you like what you see? What is your self-talk? What are you saying about yourself when you look at yourself? And hopefully you've gotten to a point where you're like me, where you look in the mirror and you're like, I really love me. I really like the fact that my hair is starting to gray a little bit. This is awesome. You know, I love that. I love who I am. And hopefully you're in this place where you can really feel that about yourself, because that's so important, is that you're nurturing yourself in the same way that you would nurture a friend, you'd nurture a child, you'd nurture a parent. And so to observe, this again, self-awareness is all about observation. It's about being the observer and being the observed. So to observe is to see, it's to notice. So what have you been noticing? What have you been noticing about your world? What have you been noticing about yourself? I'm asking a lot of questions right now, not because I'm asking, I want you to give me an answer, but just so that you can start going within and reflecting on how it is that you're taking in some of this information. And so conscious, we're building self-consciousness, self-awareness. To be conscious is known or felt by a person's inner self. So we're becoming conscious of ourselves, something bigger than what some would describe as the ego or the little self or the thoughts that sometimes feel like they're us, when in fact we're starting to realize through this very first trimester that we're way more than our thoughts, are we not? And so to become aware, by definition, is to know that something exists. So do you know that you exist on a higher level? Do you know that you are more than the physical body? Have you had those experiences? And I love that in Facebook, you're beginning to share some of those experiences. You're beginning to open. Now, depending on where you're at, some of you, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more as to why this is, but some of you aren't experiencing a whole lot right now, and you feel stuck, and you feel like you're spinning. What's happening is you're really in a point where because of, let's say, the holidays, right? And some of the memories that go along with the holidays, you may have lost a loved one. And so you're not quite yourself for that reason, because you're being triggered by some of the memories. And so again, just notice where you are right now. And this wasn't about doing anything other than that. This whole trimester, it was about noticing your breath, noticing how you perceive, and then giving you permission to practice moving your perception, moving your awareness into deeper parts of yourself, be it deeper parts within your body, deeper parts within your auric field. So that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been practicing. So I just want to mention that as far as self-awareness goes, this whole entire trimester has been a building block to self-trust. And so I want to define trust for just a moment so that you have a feeling of what that is. So trust, according to Merriam-Webster's, is assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. Now I'm going to read that again, and as I'm reading it, I want you to think and bring into your energy field, through your feelings, through your knowingness, that this assured reliance is on your intuition. It's on your higher self. Okay? So as we're moving into trimester 2, we're moving into where am I at now in terms of self-awareness, and how can I move into deeper levels of trust with me? And trust, again, is assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. And in this case, your higher self. Okay? So that's why we are doing what we're doing. So how do we shift into trust? Right? We shift into trust by recognizing where we're getting hung up and then learning what to do differently. And so this is why I have been talking so much about feeling and about being aware and about being conscious and about being in the body and about embodying the soul, so that you can receive different perceptions and different levels of awareness. So remember that the now is always changing. Energy is always changing. Higher power is forever moving. It's fluidity, it's flow. It's always dynamic. How are you interpreting your now? Are you resisting it? Are you judging it? Are you questioning it? Or are you allowing it? Again, just all questions for you to sit with. Okay? So I had some questions, as I mentioned, that came in over the last week. Is there another method for stimulating the chakras besides burning moss rolls? Now, sense of humor. So besides burning sage and things like this. Okay, I get it. So besides burning moss rolls, what can we do to stimulate the chakras? So first of all, for those of you who are a little new to what this even means, I want to give you the definition of a chakra. And maybe even if you think you know what a chakra is, when you hear the definition, it might, change your perception, which is what self-awareness is doing. So according to Merriam-Webster's, and yes, chakra is actually in the dictionary, it's any of several points of physical or spiritual energy in the human body according to yoga philosophy. Okay? So yoga philosophy, when you start digging into it a little bit, it says that there are more than 88,000 points of physical or spiritual energy known as chakras. Okay, just sit with that for a minute. For those of you who know chakras, a lot of us, we've heard of the main 7. But according to yoga philosophy, there are more than 88,000. Okay, so in many Eastern religions, such as Hinduism, there are 7 major chakras. In other religions, like Tantra, for example, there are 4. So we always hear about the main ones. It's kind of like the angels, you guys. For those of you who follow angels, you get the main angels. We know about Michael and we know about Gabriel and things like that, right? But they're way deeper. Like there's so many angels that exist, and the chakras are very similar. Okay, so we often learn about them from color. We learn about them in terms of what organ they're related to, or element they might be connected to, or mantra we might be able to say, or affirmation or something like this, right? So how you're perceiving chakras or what you even know about them most times, if you've heard about them at all, it's just the primary, like the primary colors, right? We know about them somewhat. In general, we have somewhat of an idea of them. So keeping in mind that chakras are energy centers within the human body that help to regulate things like your organs and how they function, like your immune system, that type of thing, like your emotions. You know, just keep that in mind, that there are over 88,000 of them, okay? So to ask about the chakras in this trimester can be helpful, so long as you're using it to become more aware of your energy field, okay? And I say this because we talk about distraction. So I don't want to encourage anybody to start learning new things if it's going to distract you from what the goal is. But if you're asking because you've been doing your breath work, you've been consistent with the exercises, and you're noticing from, rather than your head, let's say, you're noticing from heart, you're noticing from gut, you're noticing from your root, your tailbone. If you're noticing from different positions and now you're curious to know about the chakras, then this could be a valuable question. However, and I just want to say, because I know some of you might take this and run with it, if you're using it as a distraction to learn one more thing, because you know our curiosity, like I shared, you'll hear me share it in the Q&A. I'm a very curious person, but that curiosity can get you into trouble in terms of distracting you and taking you off course sometimes. And so we have to stick to the main goal, okay? And so if you're using it just to, you know, just because I want to learn something new, it's going to keep you from the end goal, which is to learn how to master your intuition, how to become your own intuitive medium. Okay, but if you're already doing the breath work, you're already advanced, you're starting to get it, and now you're in a spot where you really want to know, I will say that it can be helpful, because self-awareness can assist us in recognizing, in terms of the chakras, in terms of the energy fields, where it is we're balanced and what it is that we can do if we're imbalanced to realign. Okay, so I'm going to answer it from that perspective, assuming that you've done the inner work. All right, so I'm not really going to go into too much about the energy field or the auric field or anything like that, but what I will say is that your energy field includes the physical body, okay? So the physical body, the energy field, is always in flux, because that's flow. Flux means that you're in flow to the point where some days you're balanced, some days you're imbalanced. So everything's always changing. In terms of true flow, it's flux, it's dynamic, it's fluid. So to bring in self-awareness allows you to notice, for example, from different areas of your energy field, whether or not there's pain. So pain is an invitation to notice, if there's physical pain, to notice what might be connected to it. The way that it works in terms of manifestation is, before anything hits the physical level, it's hit us at an emotional level prior to that. Okay? It's just the way it works. And so in terms of self-awareness, if we have physical pain and we're looking at things from a chakra perspective, as an example, that pain can help us understand the different signals and the different clues for issues that might need our attention. So presuming, again, that you've done all your breath work and you're remaining diligent with all of your exercises to date, and you can begin then to go into the various areas of your body, such as your head, such as your heart, such as your gut, your hara, and you're perceiving. I will say that for some people, breath work is really just a start. You may need some additional stimulation, let's say, to stay motivated. Guided meditation can be very helpful. Meditations, visualizations, there's all different kinds of ways of saying it. Guided imagery, can be really helpful for you to be able to go within and to start perceiving your energy field. So you can entertain the idea of music. Begin noticing how when you play different notes, for example, or you sing different notes, how you feel in different parts of your body. There's been a lot of studies that have been done on sound therapy, and I happen to have some training in sound therapy, as well as frequency, in terms of your energy field, in terms of chakras. There are many different opinions, by the way, about the musical notations, about the frequencies, and even about the colors associated with the chakra. So they're all different opinions. Again, we all have heard pretty much the basics. For me, the easiest way that I know is just because I learned an acronym for the colors is Roy G. Biv. So red, orange, yellow, green, right? And you just keep working your way up the chakra system. Blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv was an acronym that we learned in grade school, I believe, for how to remember the primary colors and the different colors. So in terms of the notes, each of the chakras are associated with different notes as well. And the one that most people learn is that the root chakra, the R, the red, the tailbone, is connected to the note C. So as an example, if you wanted to warm up your chakras, you just start with C, and you go all the way up to the next C, right? And so these are different things that you can do, and that would be a way that you could start stimulating and opening up your chakras. The other thing I want to mention, because I feel like this is important, is if you're extra sensitive to energy, you might not want to have your chakras opened, okay? So if you're with somebody who's draining your energy, you're with somebody who is just really a downer, or they feel toxic, or you're in an environment where there's a lot of people and you're just like, gosh, I don't feel good here, you're not going to want to have your chakras opened. So what you could do is just the reverse. So in music terms, instead of doing a crescendo, you would do a descendo, right? You would actually close them down. So instead of, you pull back, right? If for those of you who visualize, and you can bring in color, instead of visualizing, for example, around the heart green, like the ghost, the go sign, like when you're on a street corner or something, and you see the light turn green, you could just turn that off. Right? So you do that with each of your chakras. You just start visualizing that they close. And so if you're in an area where you're feeling extra sensitive, that's a good way to close your energy field. It's about balance. It's about knowing when to open and when to close. So hopefully you find that one helpful. I've had a lot of exposure to muscle testing, which also provides a yes/no response depending on the question and how it's asked. Could you please talk about each one and how they're related or not related? So I love your questions. I want to mention that just like the chakras, muscle testing, it's huge. So I cannot go through each one. That would be like asking me to go through all 88,000 chakra points. It's just not possible. So what I will say is that in China, for over 2,000 years, the energy pathways of the body have been the basis of different diagnoses, right? And different treatments based on the relationship in terms of the energy field. Diagnosis and treatment has been used in terms of the different energy centers and different pathways. So here in the West, a form of muscle testing was used in the early 20th century, and they actually used it to measure whether or not someone had polio. So it goes back quite far here in the West. In 1949, two physiotherapists, Kendall and Kendall, began describing specific ways to test individual muscles for certain osteopath conditions. And it was very rigid in terms of, segmented in terms of what it is that people had to do and how they could become a practitioner. In 1964, and this is what most people know as muscle testing, a chiropractor named George Goodhart created something called applied kinesiology, AK for short. So today there are over 70 plus different muscle testing techniques used by over 1 million practitioners worldwide, okay? So the basic principle of muscle testing is a practitioner will apply force to one muscle or a group of muscles with a particular intent, such as, you know, are you allergic to this particular supplement or this particular food? And the muscle then goes weak or the muscle goes strong. And it's really all based on resistance and on force in terms of your muscles and your energy field. So classic muscle testing that so many people, if you are somewhat familiar with muscle testing, is the arm pull down. It's also called the delta test, where you hold your arm out straight and someone else pushes down on it. And if it's solid, that's a yes. And if it goes weak, it's showing a no. So there are all different kinds of muscle testing. And I know about muscle testing because a dermatologist was testing me for some allergies. So the naturopaths will use it, chiropractors will use it. This particular applied kinesiology, most of it is used around whether or not you're, at least the science behind it is whether or not you're allergic to certain foods, or you can take certain herbs, or if your body needs certain vitamins or supplements. For example, there's some who will have you chew something and then they'll test your saliva to determine how your body's reacting. Again, there's so many that I can't possibly name them all. But as far as AK or muscle testing goes, some of you have probably heard of Psych-K, some of you have heard of Body Talk, some of you have heard of Neuro-Emotional Technique or NET, Emotional Release Technique. These are all different forms of muscle testing. So just like with anything else in the world of woo-woo, okay, there's just as many people who call it quackery, okay, as people who truly believe that it works. So the most well-known science behind it comes from the International Journal of Neuroscience, whereby they did a pilot study to determine whether muscle testing benefited people with hyperallergenic responses. So they took 17 subjects and they provided who actually provided muscle testing, and the muscle testing indicated that they were allergic to certain substances. And then they did a science experiment with it where 19 out of the 21 food allergies that they tested for through muscle testing were confirmed. So their results were 19 out of 21 in these 17 subjects. So their accuracy was over 90%, and it gave what some scientists would call proof, okay, that it can work. But again, there's just as many studies that have been done where, you know, it doesn't show. I believe that it has everything to do with intention. Again, it's all energy. So if somebody has the intention of, you know, wanting it to show results that do not work to prove everybody wrong, they're going to. You know, it's just the way it's going to work. In my volume 2 book, I will tell you that if you haven't listened to or read the story about the pendulum, there's a story in there about pendulums, which is also another form of AK, muscle testing. There's all different types. Pendulums are one way, dowsing is another, something called the O-ring, where you kind of, you know, use your thumb and your very first finger here, and you kind of pull to see whether or not it's strong or if it's a weak response. There's all different kinds, guys. There's different lever tests, there's sway tests. Again, I'm just going off of just the ones that I know, and I'm sure there's many, many more. So when it comes to this course, okay, there's something different about muscle testing for herbs, muscle testing for supplements, and muscle testing for, you know, whether or not there's water in your on your property. Okay, this is about your truth, and I truly believe that each of us has a tool within us that's as unique to us as our fingerprint. And as you go through this course, you will learn what I call your spiritual yes and your spiritual no. And it will be extremely unique to you. And there will be certain methodologies that will be required of you in order for you to have accuracy. One of them is intention, right? The other is to make sure that you're in a place where you've done your self-awareness and you've done your breath work and you know what it feels like to have your soul embodied, where you can feel that you are truly grounded and you know that you're coming from a higher vibrational place, and where you have the understanding of how to release all your expectations, how to detach and how to surrender so that you are open to receive. Again, this is why it's critical that you do not move forward into trimester 2 until you've done your due diligence. Because as we get into this, you could have false positive results if you didn't do all of that, okay? Now, some of you, you can feel me, I'm speaking directly to you. There are no shortcuts in this class. We've talked about this before. You must do your inner work. So when you feel out of sorts and you know that your energy is stuck, are there some techniques that you can suggest to regain balance and flow? So first of all, thank you for recognizing that you're not quite yourself, right? You might have heard me talk before on some of my interviews where I talk about the stream, the flow. Flow is actually stream, it's source. And so if we are in flow, right, we have some of the, you know, the waves that kind of move us in and out. As I said, there's never really, even in the seasons, guys, we're in a state of balance twice a year during the solstices, right? But most times during the year, we're doing this, okay? It's just life. It's just part of life. So as we're moving in and feeling that flow, it's about recognizing where we are in it and doing everything that we can to notice which side of polarity do we want to be on. And some people choose to be on the side of negativity. And sometimes, you know, people choose to be in positivity. And sometimes people just say, I'm going to be neutral. There is no right or wrong here. But I do know that in order for you to connect to spirit guides, to connect to your loved ones, to connect to angels, they are vibrating at a very high positive frequency. And so for you to attract that, you must then be in that same state. And if you're not, then you are going to get trickster energy, you're going to get down in the dumps energy, you're going to get negative energy, and you're going to feel like you're just not yourself. So do everything that you can to keep yourself uplifted. And, you know, play in that field of possibility, play in that field of potentiality, access it through your feelings and through your experiences. Allow it to be what it is. If you feel like you're pushing it too hard, there's too much masculine energy, you're doing too hard, too much, you're trying too much, so that you can stay in the stream. When we go too positive or we go too negative, we are Xing ourselves out of the stream because we're attaching. You heard me say, miracles are wonderful, but if you attach yourself to the expectation of one, right, then you're pulling yourself out of flow. Stay in the now. So that's the best advice I can give you, is to stay in the now. Oftentimes when we feel out of sorts, we're feeling off balance, we're feeling like we're not ourselves, we're not feeling centered. It's as simple as just getting up and moving and doing something else. So in the Q&A, you'll hear me talk about dancing, you'll hear me talk about moving, you'll hear me talk about walking backwards, you know, dance backwards. There's so many different things that you can do. And, you know, for those of you who are going through this again, I remind you, you have all of those tools. So pick them up and use them if you're feeling out of sorts. The other thing that I haven't talked about, and I really feel like this is going to be helpful if you've tried all these things and you've done due diligence and you still, there's something that's not quite clicking for you, is something called reversed polarity. So I want to spend just a moment on reverse polarity. So in terms of energy, we talked a great deal about how energy works, where the masculine energy comes from, where the feminine energy comes from, but we haven't really talked a whole lot about polarity. So we are all electromagnetic energy. We are magnets, just like the earth is a magnet. We are magnet energy, which is, you know, it helps us to actually know that. So when we feel like we're out of sorts or we're not ourselves, especially after losing a loved one, it's because our energy is not running properly. So you heard me talk about in the videos how the energy can run like train tracks, right? And how we need it to run like this. We need our energies, our masculine and our feminine, our negative or positive, to work together. Knowing that, let's say you've done all that and you're still just not feeling it. Sometimes you need to reset. Just thump. And you just do this for about 30 seconds. And oftentimes there's something stuck in the thymus gland, in that energy, that simply doing this is going to allow you to open up to intuition again. It will allow you to start hearing, seeing, feeling, and knowing, again, depending on how you receive. It's funny listening to my voice as I'm tapping. Oh, the little things that bring me joy. So, all right. So as you're tapping, okay, that's one way. Another way is if your energy is flipped, okay? And sometimes energy can be flipped. So in terms of the top of us, that's our positive polarity, and the bottom of us is negative polarity. It's just the way it works in terms of magnets. However, when we've gone through a tragedy, we've gone through death, we've gone through just something that really turned, like shock, it turned our whole world upside down, our energies could be flipped. So if your energy is flipped and you keep trying it, you're not getting anywhere, it's very possible that you have reverse polarity going on, okay? And especially if you've gotten hit by lots of things all at once. So those of you who are familiar with my story, and you know that, you know, we had to sell so many of our things in our house, and we're over in near Lake Havasu, and like everything was falling apart. Our dog dies, our cat, I mean, it was crazy. My polarities were flipped, okay? And yes was no, and no was yes, and I had no idea what was going on. So if you can relate to this, okay, your polarities are flipped. First of all, it's very important that you're hydrated. Now, I feel like a nurse or a doctor. You want to check the color of your urine, guys. If your urine's yellow, you're not drinking enough liquids, okay? Make sure it's nice and clear. So make sure that you drink lots of liquid. That's really important to polarity. The second thing is something that I learned from Donna Eden. Now, you know that I have released her 5-minute energy routine. Please do that if you feel like your energies are off. Start doing her 5-minute energy routine. Another thing that she teaches people to do is she teaches them to use a stainless steel spoon, okay? So one that has enough iron in it, by the way, okay? That's the important thing. And you literally, I actually practiced this to make sure I could do this, okay, so you could see me. So you take the spoon and you start rubbing it on the bottom of your feet. And I know it seems silly, but it really works. You want to do it on both sides, and it's going to change your polarity. Even don't worry, it's not like it's going to flip you. If your energies are running properly, it's not going to actually flip you in the opposite. But it will make sure, it will actually move your polarity so that your feet are in the negative position and your head's in the positive. So you're going to want to do that on both sides. So get your spoons out, guys. Okay. The other thing in that 5-minute routine is Donna does the cross crawl. And I've had a lot of you, talk about the cross crawl, and make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you're taking the elbow to the knee and you're doing your cross crawling. Really key, really key. So these are all really good ways to do some reversals of your energy. The other thing that I want to mention, and this is really something that is very helpful if you're getting stuck in one particular spot. So it's like, overall, my life is great, but there's one spot that I keep getting stuck on. Now, for those of you who know me and you know my story, oh my gosh, it's been over 17 years of not being able to have a child, and it's just an old story, okay? And so we get stuck in a mode subconsciously, or I can't find love, or I can't make money, or anybody that I ever attach myself to leaves me, or whatever your story is, okay? If you're getting stuck subconsciously, I invite you to start doing some emotional freedom techniques, some tapping. EFT was developed by a man named Gary Craig, and so you can Google this, guys. There's so much, again, there's thousands, if not millions, of references out there to EFT. But you can exaggerate it. So your next question was, what kind of self-talk should I be having right now, right? Feel free to go into the negative with self-talk if you need to, but do it when you're tapping. So the easiest way to do it is to go, wrist to wrist, or karate chop point to karate chop point. And you can just exaggerate it. And you can actually go into the opposite if you feel like you're running polar opposite. As an example with myself is saying things like, I never really wanted to have kids. I never really believed that I could ever balance my career and have children. Now, those are things that there's something in my subconscious that really believes that as truth, okay? For some of you, it's, I don't think I can ever fall in love again, or I don't feel I can ever lose the weight, or I don't feel like I can ever get over the death of my spouse or my mom or my parent or whatever it is. And you tap, and you tap, and you tap. And there's all different tapping points, guys. And some of you who have been my private clients, I've talked to you about this, but you lost this. So bring it back in, right? Do the monkey, do whatever you need to do the heart. Get it in there and tap it out, okay? Exaggerate it, and always end on, I wholly and completely love and accept myself. And sometimes you don't even know what it is, what's stuck in your subconscious. So you can say, for whatever reason, my love's just not coming in. For whatever reason, money's just not coming in. For whatever reason, but despite all this, I wholly and completely love and accept myself. And you just keep tapping. Is regaining balance the same as grounding? So let's talk about this just a little bit. So what is grounding? Grounding is being present in your body, not just from here, but fully in your body, where you are having a conversation and you're fully connecting to the electromagnetic energy of the earth, and you're drawing in from that and from your place of higher power, from source. That's truly being grounded. And as you go through the course, you'll learn how to do that more and more and more, being fully present. Now, because we talked about balance, we talked about flow, and we know it's always in flux, you're not always going to be balanced. As I said, even in nature, there's only a couple times during the year, during the solstice, where it's all balanced out. So the key is not to be totally perfect and totally in balance. It's to be grounded and to be centered while you're grounded. And to be centered is what we've been practicing with the breath. To come at it from your core, to draw in the energy and to have connections with the breath and connections with higher power, connections when you cross the veil from that centered place. So throw out balance. Balance, again, what does it mean? There's work-life balance, there's all this stuff. Yes, try to be in flow or in stream as much as you can without Xing yourself out of it to the extreme, right? But stay in flow, stay in flux as best as you can, okay? Hopefully that helps. One more question. Can you do some of these things in public? Do you have to be, in a space where you're quiet and where you're in a meditative room? No, you can start moving. You can start noticing, am I grounded? You can sit in a subway and perceive the person next to you from your knee, from your shoulder. Can you not? You can do all these things. Have fun with it, guys. Really, bring out your feminine energy. There are no rules, okay? Remember, there are no rules. Follow your truth. Just do it. Do something. Honestly, just be, just notice. It's as simple as you're on your lunch hour And you want to actually eat mindfully. And you want to be aware of the flavors. You want to be aware of, some people, they salt and pepper their food and they haven't even tasted it. Why would you do that? Be mindful. Notice, be present, taste first. Does it even need salt? Does it even need pepper? These are all ways that we can be in the body and we can ground into the experience. And just between now and the next session, keep noticing from different places in the body. Notice how often you are in the now, and when you catch yourself, just return back to the now. Are you letting your thoughts, run, that type of thing? Catch yourself. Go outdoors, please. Get some electromagnetic energy from the earth, hug some trees, observe from different places in your energy field and outside of your energy field. So observe from underneath, observe from underneath you so that it looks like you're looking at the soles of your feet. Walk backwards, dance backwards, start to move differently. All of these things will start moving your energy and get you where you need to be. So something that I've shared today hopefully was helpful. And I really trust that you're all here for good reason. And thank you very much. Bye.